We don't talk about money or sex in America.
Ladies and gentlemen, for my next guest, I have the one, the only, Miss Utah. Rachel, come on out. The most grandest entrance of all time from any of the guests is Rachel. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And so I have a ton of stuff that, out of all the interviews I've done, I'm like really uniquely, probably the best word I have for it, excited about this one. I love having women on the show. Obviously, like kind of our industry is a lot of times dominated by males. So just having a female on the show is like awesome. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course.
And your background and story is really, really cool.
Thank
and I want to dive into a lot of it. And also how authentic and real you are with everything, right? And especially like today's world where it's like everything is very politicized and media can spin everything from different ways and people form opinions on different things. And I think for me, as I was trying to think through this interview, you being Miss Utah, now headed to Miss USA, and from stats that I've read, you have like a good chance to actually win it. Like you're up in the top % of like of chance to win Miss USA. Your background being growing up Christian, bipolar, which is a big thing that you mental health awareness that you talk a lot about, right, with your IMY campaign, and then also the bisexual, being the first one ever to go through that. Probably most of the my audience is, if I put them in a demographic, right, would be white, male, right, like middle-aged men that are conservative. That's probably like my probably viewership demographic for the most part.
Okay.
And I probably fall in that same category as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes maybe we get kind of like demonized or almost like put into this box of that we're maybe a lot of times in broad stroke are racist and you know, misogynist and sexist and homophobic, like all these different things. I'm like, man, I'm not like any of those things. At least I hope I'm not. And I think on this interview, like I have so many questions.
Absolutely.
That from a very sincere, like sincere heart of mine, like I want to know more. Like and I almost want to like apologize if I'm almost like too simplistic on certain things. But I think that me and my viewers were like have like questions that we would just like the answer from, so we can almost understand better. So I say all that to say, if I make a mistake, I totally apologize.
It's all good.
I by no means want to offend, and you can correct me anytime.
I'm not easily offended.
That's good, because I'm known to offend, so that's perfect. But yeah,
it sounds like a fun game, actually.
Yeah, it's like perfect for us. So, but there's so many like thoughts that go through my head, right? You are freaking Miss Utah, which is like so unique and successful by itself, just by having that one credential, I believe, right? I want to dive a little bit back into like how you got into pageantry, right? Like in my brain, like there's these like talos and tiaras that started at 5 years old and they work all the way through. How did you end up, Rachel, in pageantry?
Well, I definitely was not really like the standard idea of what a pageant girl was. I was a tomboy.
Okay.
Growing
up?
Growing up. The first pageant I ever did, I was like 18 or 19.
Really?
And that year, I had really set out to just try a bunch of new things. So I went to India for a month.
Yeah.
I donated all of my hair, so I shaved my head bald.
Was it like as long as it is now?
As long as it is now.
And you shaved it bald?
I donated it all. And then spent the entire summer doing like extreme sports, whitewater river rafting.
How old were you at this time?
This was still around 18 or 19.
18 years old, okay.
And that summer, I met Miss Utah, Marissa Powell.
Okay.
And she really just inspired me because I was, really adventurous and curious, but also very insecure. And I wasn't used to a woman carrying herself with that kind of presence, especially in Utah. I didn't really see a lot of like female leadership at that time. And so she inspired me to compete. I felt like if I did it, then maybe I would, someday be confident and secure like she seemed to be.
So here you're 18 years old and you see Miss Utah at that time walking by or something.
Yes.
And you say, oh, I should go do that.
Yes.
That's where it like came from, like this idea?
Absolutely.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, okay, you started, like I said, at 5 years old and you've been doing all this stuff and walking pageantries, but one day at 18, you see her and like, oh, she inspires me, I'm gonna go try that.
Definitely. I mean, as a title holder, you have a big impact. People don't always even really realize how much of an impact you have, and she influenced my life dramatically, as you can see.
All because you walked in a room and you're like, I'm gonna go.
And just the way
this.
she carried herself, you know.
So something about it just like sparked your interest and you went after it.
Absolutely.
Now there's so many questions about like just pageantry in general, right? Like my level of knowledge in pageantry is my mom and sisters watched it when I was growing up. They still watch it today. All the like Miss USA, Miss America, and Miss Universe. So obviously you can understand very limited knowledge in that industry. But there's like so many thoughts that go through my head as far as like, tell us a little bit of how it actually works.
Okay.
You win your state first, Miss Utah.
Yes.
And then you go on.
Yes, so I competed for Miss Utah USA 5 times before I won.
Okay.
And now I'll go to compete at Miss USA this coming fall.
Okay.
And you have one shot at Miss USA, and then if you win that, you have one shot at Miss Universe.
So you get one shot.
Yes.
So if you win, you've already won Miss Utah. You have only one shot.
One shot.
So if you slip,
One opportunity.
you say the wrong answer, that's it. It's
Yes.
over. If you do not win Miss USA, can you go to Miss Universe?
Technically, you could go compete in a different country if you had dual residency, but I do not. So
Yeah, so if you do not win Miss USA, there's no way that you'll ever even compete
I don't
in
think
Miss
so.
Universe.
No.
Wow, that is like strict.
Yeah.
Is there any like age limitation?
The age cutoff is 28, I believe.
28 years old
Yes.
is as high as you can compete. But on the state side, you said you did 5 rounds of it.
5
Does that
rounds.
mean 5 years? Like
Not
one
all
a year?
consecutively. There were a couple years I took off, but
Uh-huh.
yes, 5 years. I competed in pageants altogether 7 years before I won.
Did you like win like regionals or anything first, or is it just, you just go to Miss Utah and compete?
I've done some like local pageants, but you don't have to for the system
have
that
to.
I'm in. No.
So you could go straight to Miss Utah, win it, and then go through.
Yeah.
You tried it 5 times, right, Miss Utah? So-
Almost as many times as I tried to kill myself.
Okay, so there's that note. We could talk about that. Which, in all seriousness, you actually talk a lot about
Yeah.
in your I Am Why.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
I'm actually a suicide prevention speaker.
Yeah.
I've tried to end my life, I believe it was 2 times now. Not successfully.
Yeah.
Couldn't even do that right.
Yeah.
So
Well, you gotta try.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You at least give it a shot. You know what I mean?
I have a very dark humor about it. It's part of how I've coped with such dark and heavy topics is
Yeah.
being able to laugh at it. So
Do you think having that mechanism of laughter and dark humor, you think has helped get through those stages there?
1,000%. I
Yeah.
mean, I started doing improv comedy
Yeah.
as a way to cope, and that's
Right.
something that's really helped me process just all of these darker and heavy feelings I was going through. I mean, I struggled with my mental health probably for about 5 or 6 years straight, and that was actually separate to pageantry. However, there was some overlap in timing. And they were really dark times. Like, I literally cried myself to sleep every night for years. So one of the ways I coped with that was just like learning to find humor in it.
Because you do a lot of actually outreach, even coaching, training right now with mental health disorder that you help people with, and you run kind of it's not a foundation, but it kind of is a foundation, like the basics of it there with I Am Why, right? I want to talk a lot about that. When you went through pageantry, were you also going through mental illness, bipolar, kind of during that same time?
Definitely. So I believe it was the second time I competed at Miss Utah USA. It was actually later that night was my last suicide attempt.
After pageantry or something?
After I lost, I went
Okay.
home later that night and tried to end my life. And I don't think it was the pageant's fault, in all honesty. I think I'd been struggling with undiagnosed bipolar disorder for a while. And the pageant was kind of the only thing that was really keeping me excited or keeping me going, just having that goal to work towards.
Right.
And I didn't have all of the tools I needed to be able to process something like that. So it wasn't like because I lost the pageant. It was more just that the timing of I was going through with my mental health ended up being like that night was a culmination of a lot of really challenging moments.
A lot of times when you hear people talk about suicide, right, and bipolar and different mental health diseases, I think a lot of times, especially when you talk about like people attempting to commit suicide,
It's actually more appropriate to say die by suicide. Commit's usually associated with murder. Mental illness is considered, a health issue. So
you say when
you would say they died by suicide or
died
attempted suicide.
by suicide.
Yeah. Commit's
or
usually associated with a crime.
commit is more like a crime where it's like I committed a murder or committed a robbery.
Yeah.
So if you have mental health disorder, the proper terminology is
Died by suicide.
died by suicide. And what happens if you're just attempting it, or not just attempting it, but if someone attempted it, do you just say attempted?
Yeah, you would say they attempted
Suicide.
Yeah.
So if in that case, a lot of times when you hear people that, I think a lot of like kind of initial thought is they must have grew up in a rough childhood. They must have had a rough life growing up, and young people that are committing suicide, there's something that happened in their childhood, like a lifestyle or whatever it was. Do you feel like that was anything to do with yours, or was yours like a straight normal childhood growing all the way up and just an undiagnosed disease?
I mean, in many ways, I had a very privileged upbringing. I grew up in upper class suburbia, came from a slightly more affluent family at the time. Definitely, there were a lot of experiences that I had, like for example, when my parents got divorced. That was a huge change in lifestyle. I was now living with a single mother who didn't have the same financial means. I also was questioning my sexuality at the time, and didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. I didn't really feel like I belonged in any community. And on top of that, it was actually pretty traumatic. Even though I came from financial privilege, I think that sometimes there's a lot that goes kind of hidden behind closed doors in that sort of community and environment. And there were a lot of things about me, including my mental health and suicide attempts, that were not like really kosher to talk about.
Yeah, kind of a topic that most people don't ever want to bring out in public and talk about or admit to say, hey, I need this help in this area. Which one of the great things about like even your calls, go back to your calls, IMY, is kind of trying to make it an open conversation without the judgment, without the kind of legalistic approach to it, right? Trying to have those conversations, because I think a lot of times when people, make sure I say this right, when a lot of people die by suicide, that a lot of times it's because they didn't reach out. They had no one, or maybe they felt like they had no one to go to, and the people around them obviously are not making any open-ended attempt to reach out, right? I think it's a lot of what you're doing with IMY, is trying to make that platform available for them to get opened up and talk to.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest things that I'm focused on with the IMY project, which is both a social cause and a business that I run now, is really just removing shame and stigma from our conversations, like being able to have open conversations without shaming ourselves for things that we don't even understand or just maybe not the social norm. Right. If we can just have neutral conversations, it doesn't mean we have to make things positive or glamorize them or celebrate it, but even just making it neutral can actually save lives, because it allows people to say, hey, I've been in a psychiatric facility. It's actually just like going to the hospital, except for your brain. It's, pretty neutral when you say it that way, whereas when you say like the loony bin, not the most neutral conversation.
Very, very stigma into white jackets and straight jackets.
Yeah, and
so forth,
that's the mental picture we have. But, I've been inside psychiatric facilities and I've been in a hospital for like other physical health problems. There's really not that much of a difference. It's just for your brain.
Yeah. Go back to the pantry for a second. So I want to talk about, you go through Miss Utah 5 different times. Any of the other previous 4 times before you won, that did you place at all in any of those?
Yes. I placed at least once, maybe twice. I definitely remember one time. Was that
like enough for you to say, okay, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna try it again? Or did you have this natural like, no, I'm gonna win this thing?
Yeah,
no matter what happens.
I got selected to be in a pilot for a reality television show.
Okay.
And that was a huge like confidence boost that this was like my path. And I ended up, utilizing that confidence and that energy to actually place. And I remember at the end of it, the producers came up to me and they're like, wow, like, aren't you sad that you didn't win? And I was just so blown away that I even had made it that far, because I've lost so many times. And so I left thinking, well, that's probably my last pageant, because that's the best I'm ever gonna do. And kind of closed the door. And then, over the course of the year, I just remembered, Rachel, like, your dream wasn't to place, your dream was to win. Like, and I feel the same way about Miss USA. Like, yes, I have the opportunity to have, an incredible voice, and it's an honor to be there regardless. But I'm obviously going to try to win.
Yeah. A lot of these are super expensive. I don't think people realize how much these things cost for someone like you, right? Like it's not like, I'm not talking about the cost from like the production of the show. I mean like a contestant, like how much money you guys have to spend on this stuff. What is an maybe an amount of money maybe that you could explain to the audience of like what that investment is, just to go compete in like a Miss USA?
Well, to some degree, I will say it is what you make of it. You know, so there is range. The entry fees for a local or state pageant could be in the $5,000 to $2,000 range, but that's just to enter. Then you're also paying for oftentimes your evening gown, your wardrobe, hair and makeup lessons. having a stylist backstage, having clothing styling, coaching, training, walking practice, physical trainers, nutritionists. So
And all that is on you, right? To pay for?
The farther you go, I feel like you can get more sponsored. Like I do have awesome sponsors
Right.
for fitness and nutrition, but yeah, I mean the responsibility is on you. Say
Right,
you
like
want
the
to.
pageantry itself is not paying for any of that stuff for
No,
you.
like it's not like once you win Miss USA, there's
Sure.
more of a salary. But I will say, like, I've paid for everything almost entirely until I started, getting the hang of getting sponsors and learning how to ask for help in that way.
And then you got to go out and raise money through sponsorship, so forth,
Mm-hmm.
to pay for shoes, dresses, your hairstylist, so forth. I always thought, again, simple-minded me, I thought that like at those shows, all the people backstage and the
Mm-hmm.
hairstylist and makeup, those are all paid for by the pageantry, but they're not. They're literally
No.
paid for by the contestant
Yeah.
that has to have those people there.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to give maybe a perspective of a range here,
Mm-hmm.
how much would you say like an evening gown could cost up to on the high end
Mm-hmm.
for someone to have an evening gown at Miss USA?
So we are sponsored by Sherry Hill,
Okay.
and you can, go with one of her kind of standard, I don't know what it's called, but
Like
I guess,
off the shelf?
I guess, yeah, it'd be like her basic line.
Her line that she's already created.
I don't know why that's so hard to say.
That nothing's basic about pageantry.
Yeah,
but
no.
Her already pre-made.
Yeah, you can go with a
selection that she's
pre-made
already had.
dress or selection, or you can have a custom gown.
Uh-huh.
From Miss Universe dresses, or even just big pageant dresses, can be up to like 20. I've heard even 30 before.
$20,000 for a
yeah.
freaking evening
Yeah, I mean, depending
gown
on
dress.
depending on how like the beading is done,
Yeah.
or and that's definitely not what every contestant
Sure.
is spending. But
It's just unique to hear again, it's a totally new world
Mm-hmm.
of hearing. Like I had no idea. I thought it was like, hey, okay, that dress is like $1,000, but
Mm.
those dresses are going $15,000, $20,000, $25,000.
yeah, I mean, and that's not all even Sherry's dresses. Like most designer evening gowns can
Right.
get up into that range.
Yeah, I love the story that you talk about where kind of how you came out,
Mm-hmm.
because you're the first bisexual that's won that's Miss Utah and now competing in Miss USA.
Yes.
I see all that right? First
Yes.
bisexual.
I'm the first openly bisexual woman and the first openly LGBTQ plus woman at Miss USA.
So
there's
tell me
definitely
this-
probably been
yeah,
others,
There's
but
probably been others that have
Yeah.
not came out
Yes.
like you. Okay, so tell me the story about how you kind of announced, to everyone that you're bisexual.
So the night of the final show, you have the opportunity, if you make top 5, to give a personal statement. And
Okay.
so I shared what the IMY cause means to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that, between questioning my sexuality and being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, both of those things really have had me ask the question, why am I even here?
Right.
And the answer that I found is that I am why I am here. The only reason that I need to have a happy and successful life is the fact that I'm alive right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was sharing that with the audience, that was the first time they really knew, like, wow, this is this girl is discussing being bisexual and having bipolar disorder. And that was, me coming out to the entire pageant, and the first time I'd ever really said it like out loud in public like that.
Was when you came out on this like final question statement that they had in this pageantry.
Yes.
And that's when you kind of announced that, or came out that you were bisexual.
Yes.
In it, and then like you said, my guess is there's probably been many others that have competed and won that were, but have never. Has there ever been anybody that's came out afterwards, like after they won, that they came out that you know of?
I believe so, but I can't say off the
For
top
sure
of my
if there has
head.
been?
But I definitely feel like I've heard that that's happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you did this and you came out on this final question statement, you go on to win Miss Utah, right? One question that goes through my head is, do you think there was any when you came out, do you think it helped or increased your odds? Like they wanted, we want a bisexual to win, or do you think it had zero effect whatsoever?
I think that the things that I was saying about it helped my odds,
Yeah.
because Utah is 5th in the nation for suicide, and I think it's important to note that a huge portion of that is LGBTQ community, and especially LGBTQ plus teenagers and children. And so I think having someone who's outspoken about that and can be a voice for that community was seen as something that's really needed.
Right.
I don't think just being bisexual is what won, because that's just a detail. I mean, it's more like what your message is or what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So you go on, you announce it that night, you come out. Was there any type of backlash, any type of negativity, or everything super positive?
My own personal social media was very safe, and a lot of people reached out to me actually letting me know like, wow, thank you so much for sharing this. I'm also queer. I'm also struggling with a mental health issue. But I did see, once my story started going on like Good Morning America and CNN, I would read comments, and there were a lot of people that had a lot of things to say that weren't as nice. And one of the questions that I actually saw the most was more just like, why does it matter? Like, we don't care who you're, they've said cruder things, but yes, we don't care who you're attracted to. Yes. And that was actually a good reflection point for me, because I actually don't really feel like my sexuality is like a platform, know, and I can actually say, like, to some degree, it shouldn't matter, but it does, because, there are so many people that still feel like they can't come out, or they can't like love who they love out in public without fear of being persecuted by other people. And so in that case, representation does matter, because then young women or young men or non-binary people have someone that they can actually look up to, who's like, oh, that person's successful and they're achieving their goals and they're like me. And so I think, yes, it shouldn't matter who I love or who I date from one perspective, but it does for all of those who still haven't had the courage to accept themselves in that way.
When you came out that night at the Patty Street, did your parents, everybody already know, or they did not? Was that what you told them that same night?
So I came out to my family a year prior.
Okay.
It was a really tough conversation. To be honest, like my mother took it really hard, and she felt like she'd failed as a parent, and expressed that to me. My brother was really embarrassed at the time and was humiliated when I posted it on social media a few days later. So I came out a long time before, and to
your inner circle, basically.
To my inner circle. And my mother actually forgot. Like, she literally was so traumatized. Like, honestly, she was so traumatized by what I shared with her that she kind of blocked it out of her memory. And I think it was really hard for her the night of the pageant to actually have me say that out loud in front of so many people. Like, on one hand, I knew that she was proud of me, and I knew that she's wanted this for me for a long time. But I also know that I don't think it really fully landed until I was saying it in front of a bunch of people. And that's something that her and I have had lots of conversations about since. Now my brother and my mom are both much more supportive and understanding, even though they don't fully they're not stoked about it. It's not like they've changed their core beliefs and ideologies.
Right.
But at least, my brother is like, well, Rachel, as long as if you marry a woman, I just hope that our kids are still friends. And I hope that we're just a part of each other's lives. And so they might not fully understand it, but they're a lot more accepting of it than they were when I first came out, which I think is actually really inspiring. You
talk about mental health and suicide rates and so forth, especially within that community. Do you think that some of it has to do with what you're talking about right there? Do you think that that is part of what's driving the higher suicide rate inside the community? Is that they kind of what you're saying with IMY, they have nowhere to go, and they just internally spin there and spin and spin and spin until it kind of blows up. And
it's honestly devastating when you feel like you've let your family down.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you want to be a disappointment. It's not like you want to hurt them. And I'm honestly glad I waited personally till I was older, because I had the maturity to be able to see things from their perspective too, and to understand how devastating to them it was to hear based on their beliefs. So it wasn't just about me and I'm right and this is,
Right.
You need to agree with me. I was able to see from their perspective that actually probably is really scary to hear for them, based off what they believe.
Because you grew up in a very religious, conservative home.
I did, yes.
Would you still today consider yourself a Christian?
Yes, definitely.
Which I think is one of those things that's kind of two opposites where most people don't consider, right? You say on one hand, hey, I'm a Christian, and on the other hand, you say, hey, I'm also bisexual. I think a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't be both, or you can't do whatever it is, right? How do you go about, and even maybe another angle would be even in the LGBTQ plus community, I look at it and say there's probably not a majority of Christians in there. Is it be a fair assumption? It's 90% of them are Christian.
Probably not 90%, no.
Is there a struggle in that community as well, saying that you're a Christian and queer, and then on the other side of the same equation, where you are in a Christian home and you're saying, is there a struggle there?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm both a voice for a lot of different ideologies and beliefs and peoples,
right,
and also very much a lone wolf by doing that, because
kind of put yourself really out there.
Yeah, because I don't fully align or fit into any one group, but I also think that's important to say, because humans aren't one-dimensional. We are, multi-dimensional beings that we contradict each other. We constantly make choices that we're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Humans are complex beings, and we really like to be to see people as, oh, they're all good or they're all bad or they're all this. They're, you know, you fit into this group or you're this label. But like, you know, in my day-to-day life, I'm not like running around like I'm bisexual today, like, or I'm bipolar
you don't
today.
Wear a sign.
They're just labels, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just Rachel, and like that expresses itself in so many different ways. And yes, there's a lot that I'm still coming to terms with. But what's helped me the most is that those differences or those places where, you know, aspects of myself maybe clash used to trigger a lot of like suicidal thoughts or feelings of not belonging. But knowing that, you know, regardless of what you believe, everyone, I believe, is worthy of unconditional love. Not all of us know how to actually practice that, but I believe we're all worthy of it. And so that's what I remind myself in those moments, is that I don't have to be one thing. I don't have to be perfect. Like, I still deserve and want to offer to the world love without conditions.
Yeah, you got this incredible platform, right, of winning Miss Utah, that now kind of your voice is being heard more and more and more. Even this interview here, right, is opening doors for you, creating more platforms by being Miss Utah, is creating those platforms for you. I've got a list of questions here, and hopefully none of these are offensive to you.
Go for it.
But a lot of it is just, I want to understand more, you know what I mean? So let me ask you a couple questions. So number one, a while ago, I used the word queer a while ago. And now that word is kind of more or less like an acceptable and usable word that's used, where almost as a kid, I was growing up, it was a negative kind of connotation, and now you guys, the LGBTQ community actually uses and claims that word. What happened there?
I think it's a way that the queer community went and took back their power. You know, when you use a word that's used against you to disempower you, and you say, no, wait, I am that. Now what? Now what are you going to do? It's a way of kind of challenging those beliefs and saying, like, you can't actually put any label on us that makes us less worthy than you. And so when you take back those words, it actually really is empowering. And so the word queer now is an all-encompassing word for the entire LGBTQ plus community.
That's kind of like the umbrella word, right? So it's like queer is the umbrella word.
So I identify as both bisexual and queer.
Is that pretty much everybody that's inside the LGBTQ community plus would identify as queer?
Not necessarily everybody. No. I think a lot of people will use it as an all-encompassing term. It's still a word that's like, the meaning is evolving. So I'm curious to see what that becomes.
Gotcha. Help me understand the plus. What is the plus for? Why is it there?
As we continue to understand sexuality and gender, and we have these discussions, we found that there's all sorts of other groups of people that never really had a voice before. So there's also intersex, which is people that are born with both gender. So the letters keep going on, or asexual, LGBTQ plus IA, and it keeps going. So at a certain point, they just added a little plus.
Added a plus sign.
Yeah, and to encourage, to mean like everyone that maybe is a little bit gender non-conforming or not heteronormative. Yeah,
because that was another my kind of follow-up question there is all the letters. From the outside looking in, trying to understand things, it seems like they continue to grow, and it's like, okay, now there's I and A and so forth. Is there a point where there are no more letters, or does it just keep growing and growing and growing?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I kind of hope there comes a point where we don't need labels as much. But I think it's important, as we're in this discovery and having these sort of conversations, to have things that we can use to describe ourselves. But ultimately, we're all human beings, and I think that's why we all deserve the same amount of equality and respect. And whatever somebody needs to feel understood, I think that's really helpful. Like for me, claiming the word bipolar and claiming the word bisexual has helped me to understand myself. Does that mean that that's my whole identity? Absolutely not.
Right. I recently got on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I have a TikTok.
You have a TikTok? Yeah. What's your handle? Do you know it?
I think it's @SaltyRachel.
@SaltyRachel.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot on TikTok or no?
I'm more of an Instagrammer.
Instagram? And what's that handle, by the way?
@SaltyRachel.
@SaltyRachel.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, why Salty?
Salt Lake City.
Oh, Salt Lake City. Okay. But uniquely enough on TikTok, right?
Yes.
As I watch TikTok, and me being a Trump supporter, okay?
And the spies are using it, yes.
Yeah, so the spies in China. Forget all that stuff for a second, okay? So my point is, one thing that I was very, very, almost taken back for a second by was I was like, wow, was how many of the LGBTQ community plus kind of supported or Republicans, or so maybe supported Trump, but maybe a better term would be they were Republicans in general. Because I think, kind of stereotypical, I think most people think that if you're part of the community, you're immediately Democrat. What do you see? Talk to me from the perspective of inside the community. Well, what is that like? Is it all Democrat, or I was kind of blown away by how many Republicans there were?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's that idea, but a lot of my queer friends are Republicans, and there's, there's both.
Yeah, because it seems like so much of the attack on Republicans don't want to help the LGBTQ community, right? And Democrats are actively maybe going after it, right, helping. But yeah, it seems like there was quite a few of the actually in support of Republican type stuff.
Definitely. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago who's part of the queer community as a Republican, and to me it's interesting because, you know, I've both, you know, spent time in Utah and in more liberal places, so I have a lot of different perspectives, and I love hearing like queer Republican voices because I think that is actually something that there is a lot of people out there, but not a lot of people actually like speaking out. There's so many ways that humans can kind of have these different polarities or different contrasting beliefs. I think that that's like the beauty and complexity of being a human being.
Right.
It's not like you have to just go be
I
one
think people
thing.
try to put so many people in buckets and say, well, if you're this, then you're this. If you're this, you're this. In reality, we as humans are very complex.
Yes.
And can be many things and have different beliefs and different opinions.
And am I the most typical Christian? Probably not.
Sure.
I don't pretend to be by any means.
But you have the belief system and the core values that you believe in your Christian life. That then you also have the LGBTQ plus support that you are on a platform promoting and trying to help draw awareness to it. On that topic of cancel culture, drives me absolutely nuts.
I think it's really sad.
Because it's like, dude, what built America was the First Amendment. Whether you agree with what that person is saying or not, right? That person has the right to have their First Amendment, and I don't know if you have a right to take that away from them or try to cancel them just because you don't agree with what they're saying.
Well, to me, it's a reflection of like a chronic self-worth issue in our country, because if you actually have strong self-esteem, you can allow people to make mistakes without throwing them out completely. Yeah. We have this like burn people at the stake sort of mentality because I think, you know, there's just a lot of people that are struggling with their self-esteem. When
BLM started, and let's just say the last even it started before this, but let's say the last 6 months, it's so like overwhelming that I always think to myself like, hey, why doesn't the LGBTQ plus community, why don't they have those same type of hard pushes, let's say, to drive focus awareness into it? And from your side, the queer side, does it ever bother you that they're getting so much attention when, in my opinion, it seems like that your community as well was persecuted and discriminated against, and no equality and all kinds of things were done to that same community as well? Does that ever offend or bother that one side's taking so much of the attention?
Definitely not, because I feel like, well, first of all, in the Stonewall riots, which really started the LGBTQ plus movement as, you know, equal rights, it was started by a black queer woman, you know, a black trans woman actually, who threw the first stone at a riot. And it was, you know, that little public outburst that allowed people like myself to be able to have the equal option to marry someone of the same gender. And so I think there's almost this like camaraderie between minority groups. Like, for example, instead of celebrating Pride this year, we basically did something to celebrate Black Lives Matters, like to support that. So it was a queers for, or LGBTQ plus for BLM. And, you know, I definitely think that not everyone fully understands what the Black Lives Matters movement really is. Because there's so much in the media that gets distorted. But I think the general sentiment of that event was really just to say, hey, you know, we know what it's like to be discriminated against. We don't want anyone to go through that. You know, regardless of who started these riots or, you know, what your beliefs are about what happened to George Floyd, or, you know, really regardless of any of that, it's never okay for someone to be victimized by their race. And the fact that this is still happening, you know, of course the queer community is going to step up and show up for that. Regardless of what you believe about what happened, it's just not okay. So if something sparks that conversation, I think even taking any kind of action is important.
Interesting. So this is like education for me in that the LGBTQ community plus actually supported and lent help, if you will, to the BLM community. It's not so much as competing against each other as much as it is supporting each other, because both were discriminated against, oppressed, and so forth.
Definitely. And to me, what the rainbow really represents is equality and unity across all peoples, regardless of their race, gender, sexuality, anything. I mean, it's really about treating people like with equal rights and equal respect. And you know, there is controversy over what happened with George Floyd, because you know, different perspectives see that so differently. But at the end of the day, you know, police brutality is wrong, and it's black on black crimes happen, but also white on black crimes happen, and really attacking anyone for their race is just unacceptable. And so regardless of what you believe about really anything politically, I think we can hopefully all agree someday as a country that it's wrong to discriminate against someone based off their skin color.
Or sexuality.
Or sexuality. Or their mental health diagnosis or anything.
And that's what I want to go to is the mental health side for a little bit. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about mix up a little bit here with you, and I want to talk about Rachel's favorites.
Okay.
Talk to me about Rachel's favorite influencer.
Well, Ellen DeGeneres.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I know there's some controversy around her right
Yeah,
now.
that's what I
but
say. There's like
literally everything's controversial these
Sure.
days, and all I know is that Ellen's comedy really helped me out, and as someone who loves comedy a lot, to have a female queer comedian out there was something that really inspired me.
Do you have any thoughts on, like growing up, Rosie O'Donnell came out with the Rosie O'Donnell Show, right? And it kind of almost was flopped and attacked and so forth. And then you had the Ellen Show that came out and became super, super successful. Probably one of the greatest talk shows, minus this one, of all time. And why are you laughing? Oh, you're coughing.
Tickle.
Okay, sorry. Watching those, do you think like Rosie kind of paved that path?
Absolutely.
For Ellen there?
I think any queer woman who's outspoken about her sexuality is always paving the path for someone who's watching her.
Do you know, I mean, I don't really follow, per se, either one of them, probably more Ellen, but do you know if Ellen has ever paid any respects to like, Rose in that manner? Have you ever seen that before?
I'm not sure.
Great person. I love her show and what she does with Ellen. The controversy is unique that's coming out right now. And it's like, I did not see that coming anywhere because she's so like nice and positive and upbeat.
Effervescent.
Yeah, on stage. Like it's hard for me to even like understand and buy into that one. But what is your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Instagram is your go-to jam right now?
Yeah.
And your handle is again at Salty Rachel,
yes.
which is after Salt Lake City, representing. What is your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Christmas. Then the next question would be good. What's your favorite Christmas movie?
The Grinch.
The Grinch. Give me the favorite way that you relax before you have a big pageant or show.
Meditation.
Meditation. So what is that like? What does that mean when you say meditation?
I have an app on my phone that times me, and I usually just go somewhere quiet and try to still my mind. Actually, this year at Miss Utah, I was so nervous on stage that someone said that like the judges, could see me shaking. Like literally, they could see me shaking from stage. So my friend was like, comes backstage and is like, Rachel, like you have to take a Xanax. Like you have to do this. And I was like, why? And they're like, we can see you shaking, like no one's gonna crown you. You look like you're so scared. And I was like, well, I can't just take like medication that's I'm not prescribed, and especially since I've worked so hard for my mental health, like that's just not something I'm willing to compromise on. So I literally went into a hallway and I was like, I've got this. Put some like meditation buds in and just started doing deep breathing
Calming,
and
meditating.
visualization, and went out and felt totally at peace.
Is that the one that you won?
That was the night I won.
The one as well?
Yeah.
That's gotta be so stressful. Like one slip on stage, like one foot that goes, and they have freaking stairs, like glass stairs. I'm like, someone should think through this a little bit more. Like, we have all these like ladies in high heels and then glass, like or whatever it is, like tile stairs everywhere. Talk to me about your favorite celebrity or personality that you have met now.
I was a private flight attendant for 2 years, so I've actually met a lot, but I had to sign an NDA before that job. So I'm trying to think of someone that was not under contract. I don't know if there's a single person that I actually can say that I've met.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, just go with me then.
Okay,
just say
it's you.
Andrew.
It's Andrew.
The biggest celebrity that you've met so far. What is your, because I know you have a little bit of background in this one. What's your favorite extreme sport activity you've ever done?
Ooh, whitewater rafting.
Whitewater
Love
rafting?
it. Yeah,
You love it?
Southern Utah has some of the most beautiful whitewater, rivers you can go down. So fun.
So whitewater rafting.
Whitewater rafting.
And let's see here. What's your favorite thing about serving as a Miss Utah?
I think just, really listening to what people are going through and being a safe space for them. Like I've had so many people that reach out that say, hey, you're the first person I've ever told this. And then they'll go on to share something about their mental health or their sexuality. And to know that people can trust me like that, and to know that they can feel that I'm not going to judge them or share their secrets or do anything to hurt them has been just like a really beautiful experience. It's been my favorite part of winning by far.
Winning. You're crowned Miss Utah for 1 year, but you always have, you can always say former Miss Utah?
Yes.
Is that part of it? You can always say former Miss Utah? Your tenure stops when?
Hopefully when I compete at Miss USA and win. But the next Miss Utah USA pageant is in March.
Is that how it works for everybody? So like when they're, I mean, this may be the wrong word, but their tenure, their 1 year expires. Does that always kind of lead into Miss USA?
Usually Miss USA is in May, so this year is very different now that it's going to be in the fall.
Okay.
And normally you would go, you compete, and if you didn't win, you would still have the entire rest of the year to go be Miss Utah. This time I think you would maybe have a couple months.
If you win, you go to Miss Universe.
Yes.
After that. Can you help me with this? What is the difference between Miss USA and Miss America?
So they're different pageants.
Okay.
They oftentimes get confused. They have some differences, like the Miss America pageant removed their swimsuit competition.
Okay.
So they no longer do that. The Miss USA pageant actually branched off from Miss America. So they went and started their own. And it used to be formerly owned by our current president, Trump.
So he used to own Miss USA.
Yes.
But Miss USA branched off from
Miss America. Yes.
So they're like two different brands, if you will.
Yes,
there's Miss
totally
America and there's
separate
Miss
now.
USA, totally separate from each other.
And Miss USA is the only one that goes to Miss Universe.
Okay, so Miss America, even if you win Miss America, you cannot go to Miss Universe. It stops right there. Can you do both? Has there ever been a Miss USA that won and then later on won Miss America, or vice versa?
Probably. I know you can compete in both.
You can compete in both. Okay. Let's talk about the mental healthiness that you work with.
Yes.
Because you have this like two powerful platforms, right, or voices maybe, messages where you're talking about. You have the bisexual message community that you work with, and then you have the bipolar mental health capacity you work with. When you look at the mental health process we have in America, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how broken do you think that is?
I think it's horrible, honestly.
It seems like it is absolutely wretched.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's people that genuinely care that work in mental health,
Sure.
But the overall system, I think, needs a lot of reform and a lot of care.
It seems like it's one of those systems that has been completely like overlooked in our country, like almost from, kind of the beginning of it, where it's almost like a negative connotation, and like if you had that, it was, like you said, maybe it's like, oh, you're a psych ward. Like the movies kind of portray it. And I think that's how I kind of got that negative connotation as well. And it seems like it's been completely overlooked by our government, by our politicians.
And like exactly like you said, like
it.
people would just be put away into a facility rather than ever really, addressing what their childhood trauma was. There's a lot of things that I think end up either, undiagnosed or just kind of, you stay in this repetitive cycle of diagnosis without ever actually dealing with the things that created it. And I think that the more that we see people as like people and less as diagnoses, we can actually address the things that make them, struggle with their mental health and actually, heal the brain. Like there's evidence that shows you can heal your brain. These are things that aren't really spoken about. Like when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was essentially told that it was like a lifelong death sentence almost, like it was going to be this way forever. And it may be, like who knows, but what I found in the last 2 years is that my brain is way more balanced and healthy, and there's so much potential for it to heal. And I feel like a different person, in terms of my level of self-care and accountability and balance. It's not to say that I don't have, my struggles, but I think that it doesn't have to be this death sentence that it, is maybe stigmatized or talked about necessarily in medical books. And honestly, like how much attention are people really giving to these diagnoses or giving to mental health? Like, are we actually doing the best that we can? No, I think we put people in different diagnostics, but we don't really see what is, what's possible when you start to remove the shame and stigma around it.
What are some of the things that you think that we as a country could do if you were in charge when you win Miss USA and then you go into win Miss Universe? What are some of the things that you think we could do as a country to fix some of the mental problems we have right now?
I think that one of the things that happens, especially something that happened to me and the reason that I ended up homeless, is that, if you're not in school or if you're not in a standard job and you're struggling with your mental health, like I was a flight attendant at the time, so it's a little bit different than your standard 9 to 5. If people aren't seeing you regularly, you can kind of get lost. I was released from the hospital with no psychiatrist, no follow-up plan, no medication, and sent back to, back to my home area. I lost my job because I had a manic episode at work.
Okay.
I lost my apartment because I was in the middle of moving when that happened. So I get back, I flew back to Los Angeles after this all happens with literally no plan.
Yeah.
Like no access, no resources, nothing. And I had to go and like stand in line for hours in, free clinic lines, and, I was the one that was like, I think I need medication. Can someone help me? No one was like, you might need this. And I don't think, we can get into medication or no medication, but that's what at the time I thought was best for me. And so I had to advocate for myself, which is definitely what I encourage people to do. But there's something wrong with that. Like where are the people that are advocating for people that maybe don't have that voice or that, that education, which is why I've worked so hard, and I'm here to try to be that person to say, hey, like I might not be in your life right now able to walk you through this, but I hope that my experiences can help.
Yeah.
But I think that the government needs to provide, I think, advocates, more advocates, people that are actually employed by the government to help advocate for people through the mental health system. Because, sometimes a psychiatrist and a therapist isn't enough, or sometimes just throwing people on medication and expecting them to balance out over time while maintaining employment, while maintaining jobs or taking care of their families. Like, if you don't have familial support, or if you're not in school as a student, where is that support coming from?
Right.
Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
Do you think that natural remedies help, and then of course medication on top of it? Is there one that you're more prominent for, or push more, or do you believe in a mixture of both?
Well, I advocate at this point in my life for medication neutrality. So if someone chooses to participate in taking medication, there shouldn't be any shame or stigma around that. Granted, I am concerned sometimes with the way that medication's pushed as a first choice or a first option. I use a low dose of medication supplementally, just like I would any other supplement. I don't think there's any shame in that, because if you take vitamin D or vitamin C, that's supplementing your health.
Yeah, true.
And so I think that medication maybe has a place there, but I don't think medication is the reason that I'm like a stable human. I think working on myself and my trauma and my past and like really processing things is how I've been able to remove shame. And I think the problem was not that I had a diagnosis, it was just how much I hated myself for having one.
Was there a time of you growing up where you were not diagnosed, that you felt like, hey, something's off, like I feel like I'm not right now? Or did that come later in life when you were grown out of the house? Where did it kind of start for you at?
I started self-harming in middle school. So I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I, injured my body myself, which is definitely a sign that something's not necessarily normal. I remember even younger than that, I definitely had like really big emotional outbursts, but at the same time, I'm also just an emotional being separate from my mental health. I'm very much in my emotions. I just think that a lot of it was that I didn't have the tools to process, and I am curious sometimes how much would have turned into a diagnosis or would have turned into all of these more serious things I had to go through if I just had the skills to process my emotions when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're necessarily diagnosis material for having big emotions. I think that when you have big emotions and you don't know how to cope with it and you don't have any skills, that's when we start to act out in disordered behaviors.
What are some of the things that you're telling people that are coming to you as far as how they kind of get through this? What is that kind of like, or is it different for every single person, or is there kind of like the underlying theme of, hey, if you're going through this, you should be doing this right now? Or is it totally different across the board for every person?
Well, there's some things that I think apply to everyone, like learning basic self-care, how to actually care for your body. It sounds so simple, but most people aren't actually drinking the amount of water they need or getting enough sleep or just basic human self-care. So I start everybody there, because if you're gonna start doing work on your emotions or processing your trauma and you're not in a place where your brain feels safe, you're gonna be still in that fight or flight mode. What you want to do is get out of fight or flight mode as best you can, and then start working on those emotions and start dealing with what's happened in your past. And so I tell everyone to start with just make your body a place where you feel safe.
Body self-awareness first.
First, yeah.
And then grow from there, create that solid foundation, take care of your body, and then grow from that same point. When you did this IMY.
So it started out as a message about self-love for people struggling with their mental health, and for anyone who's asking, why am I here? To know that you're the reason you're here. You don't need a bigger reason. You can have a bigger reason, but every human life is valuable and sacred and is enough. It's a good enough reason to keep going. That's where the message started from. I never expected that to turn into workshops and coaching programs.
Never the goal.
That's something how it kind of evolved into.
I want to go through a section here. And now I'm going to do your rapid fire ones.
Okay.
And these are some one-off quick questions here that we'll hit. And then I want to get your answer on what money is to you. So this is Rachel's rapid fire. If you had to choose one, would you be Miss Universe, win the Miss Universe title, or $1 million right now in your bank account?
That's a tough one.
That's tough. $1 million right now, wired to your account, or win Miss Universe title?
Win Miss Universe.
Win Miss Universe? Okay. I want to know why. Why'd you choose that one?
Because I believe that as Miss Universe, I have a chance to be the first Miss Universe to go to space.
To go to space? Because not where I thought you were going to go with that, but I thought it was going to be because it would create a platform and I could really reach more people.
It's all about space, actually.
You want to go to space. Great. Awesome. And $1 million would not get you to space. There's no tickets for $1 million to go to space.
There's no tickets for $1 million
to go to space. Okay, what comes to mind, rapid fire, what comes to mind when I say swimsuit competition?
Salads.
salads. That means not a lot of food intake.
No, definitely food intake. Just lots of vegetables.
Lots of vegetables. Sounds horrible. Now, what is your strangest pageant kind of hack that you've utilized before at competitions that you can talk about?
That I can talk about. I would say strangest pageant hack.
Hack.
Can I have an example? Can I phone a friend?
Can you phone a friend? Like a hack would be like you paper clipped part of the dress at the last minute together, or you hairsprayed your shoes at the bottom to stick, something like that.
I one time forgot my very first pageant. I forgot all my wardrobe.
Oh gosh.
So I had to like borrow stuff and put it together. I literally took 2 T-shirts that I had in my bag and tied them together for like my first.
No, you did not.
Kid you not. My first cocktail party, I went in 2 T-shirts that I tied together.
that would be a hack. 2 T-shirts tied together. That'd be a hack. I had paper clip.
Basically
you had
Gucci.
2 T-shirts. Here we go. Here's a funny one for you. Would you rather walk as a model in a fashion show wearing Donald Trump's hairpiece, or would you rather pose for a magazine on a photo shoot dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Definitely Ruth.
Definitely Ruth, dressed up as Ruth.
Yeah.
Ginsburg there. Let's see here.
But like only if it's for Maxim.
Oh, for Maxim magazine. Yeah, I think Maxim would have Ruth Bader. That makes a lot of logical sense. If you had it, there's another question here for you. You can be famous. You had to choose. You can be an actress or a singer. Which would it be?
I'd be an actress who plays a singer.
Okay, that is not on the questionnaire. It just simply says actress or singer.
Okay, then actress. In
So
the
you'd be
movie,
like
I'm a
Phoebe.
singer.
Did you grow up with Friends?
Just like that,
You'd be
yes.
Friends with Phoebe. I
Yeah.
got you. Okay. And then tell me about your magazine cover. If you had to choose between Vogue, Elle, Cosmopolitan, or other, what would you choose? Front cover for Rachel.
Times.
Times magazine. Why is that?
I'm clearly very classy and distinguished.
That's what it says right here. It says very classy and distinguished. Let's see, hidden talent we got. Last one I got for you, rapid fire, is it a bigger deal to be Miss America or Miss USA?
Miss USA.
It is a bigger deal. Why is that? Because you get access to Miss Universe?
Miss Universe. Then space.
I don't think that's in your contract, but it does make sense.
Definitely, I would say that Miss Universe pageant is one of the most prestigious
Definitely the highest, right?
international pageants.
That exists out there. And that's competing against women from around the world.
Yeah.
And some of those women have tried, have been in that industry
their whole lives.
Yes. Have been in it and are winning, and they as well only have one shot.
Yes.
Once they get there, they have that one shot to win.
Yes.
Man, that is so intense. Like competition that's like super fierce.
Trying to stress me out over here.
No, I mean the stats show that you have a good chance to win. I support you.
Thank you.
Talk to me about a little bit on a serious note. One thing I do that I think I've enjoyed talking to you about is you do have legitimately like you're a girl that knows what they want and where they're going. Like you're someone that has like a vision and a goal and you have big dreams. You're not afraid to dream big. So tell me a little bit about what your dreams are right now with your current career that you have right now.
I plan to be the first openly LGBTQ plus woman to win Miss Universe. That's my dream. I mean, because that's not just for me. It's also the fact that there are people all over the world that are still being literally murdered for being queer.
Yeah.
And I think to have someone, that represents like not just my country, but the entire global community, I think that would be really important.
Yeah. Do you find is there a lot of support from the LGBTQ plus community
Definitely.
behind you right now, trying to help support you and so forth?
Yes.
A lot of drive behind there.
Yes, definitely.
What is the dream behind the space?
Well, so when I had a manic episode, I've only had one that's considered like an actual manic episode, and I think that there were a few things, including recreational drug use and lack of sleep, and a few other factors that played into it. So it's possible I'll never have that happen again. But it was very terrifying, and I basically had this experience where I was convinced, I was in a hospital, mind you, in the emergency room, convinced that it was a waiting room, and that I was waiting for Elon Musk to come pick me up and take me in a spaceship to Mars.
Yeah.
And I was like, stoked.
You're ready.
So ready, yeah. And so I think for me, I joke about being the first Miss Universe to go to space because, one, it's actually possible.
Yeah, nowadays
it is. And also it just kind of reminds me where I've come from.
Yeah.
So being able to find just humor in some of my most terrifying life experiences has just helped me keep going. So I laugh about that and it helps me get through it.
Yeah, I love that, man. I hope you accomplish going to space.
Thank you.
That'd be really, really cool. That is it's a cool dream, and it's something in today's society we could do that. You could literally accomplish that.
I've heard that people go up in hot air balloons and like break through the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk is getting closer and closer. They had his like launch recently, definitely getting closer. So I think it happened in your lifetime, and you may be the first Miss Universe as well as first LGBTQ plus person to Mars.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Mars. I just want to like.
You just want to break the atmosphere?
Just break the atmosphere. Gotcha. I really like Earth, actually. I've gotten used to it.
It's a cool spot. I kind of enjoy it. I got your sign here for what money is, right? And we started this whole brand of Money Is. It was basically trying to get people to think through like it's not really just about money. Like you're not just in business or investing like just for money. There's gonna be something more important than just money, right? Just having money. And so that's why we kind of created the whole show, the episode, is try to figure out like what does money mean to different people? Because once you kind of know what money means, it allows you to go accomplish and drive and look for that. So I'm super interested to see what your word is. So what I'm gonna do is I got this sign and we had it made with your photo on it there. Do you know where that photo is from?
Yes.
Where's it from?
It was taken by a photographer named Austin Ride the day after I was crowned Miss Utah.
So this is the day after you just won Miss Utah there.
Yes.
And so what we'll do is I'm gonna hand this to you. You fill in what money is to you. Could be one word, could be a sentence. It's still up to you. Fill in what it means here, and then I want your signature right here. Okay. And then we'll talk about why did you put that? What does it mean that for you?
Okay.
So first you take this, and let me get you the Sharpie. There's the Sharpie. Okay. In the middle.
Right here?
Yeah, right there. Perfect. There you go. All right. I love it. I knew, before I showed everybody the answer, I knew that you would have a unique answer, and I knew it was not going to be freedom, which is the go-to answer for everybody. So I'll show everybody what your answer is. Very, very unique. It says, first one ever, that says money is for everyone, heart, and then your signature, okay? So you're the first one with a heart on the sign as well. Haven't had that before. But there's a very, very, I think, deep meaning answer there. What does that mean? Money is for everyone.
Well, for myself personally, 2 years ago, I was in thousands of dollars in debt, homeless, basically feeling just like the lowest of the lows. And because I was struggling with my mental health, I just felt like I was never going to have even like a space that belonged to me, let alone like, a bank account, savings, that sort of thing. And over the last 2 years, that's totally changed, paid all my debts, have, a savings. I'm in a great financial situation, like in terms of owning my assets. And I think that I had such low self-esteem from, what happened to me in those hospitals and just feeling like there was something inherently wrong with me. And I think it's really normal for us to look at people that are struggling, like say someone living on the street, and think, well, they chose that. And maybe for some people that's the case, but I know for myself personally, I ended up in the situation I was in because of my mental health.
Right.
And it was because people chose to see me as worthy and as equal, and people helped me. It's not like people were giving me money, but I was at least given places to stay or certain levels of opportunity. I was given my job back again, even though I thought I had lost it forever. There were people that saw me as more than just that incident and saw me as a human and gave me opportunities that allowed me to get back up on my feet and then start my own business and start making money for myself. And so I think that, I'm not necessarily saying like everyone should go around giving handouts because, if someone's struggling with their mental health, money's not necessarily gonna help. They need healthcare.
Right.
But I was on free government healthcare, like piecing things together to get where I am now. And I just wish that we just saw that everyone deserves to have money. It's not like some person is more worthy than another person. Yes, it's not something we should just like hand out. We do need to work for it and earn it. But I think there has to be some kind of middle ground for people that are struggling and for people who need help.
Yeah. I love it. When you wrote the answer, I immediately thought I've taught tons and tons of classes on money. And it's amazing that I fully believe this after all the classes I've taught, is there is a mental block that people have when it comes to money. And when you grow up generationally poor, broke, with nothing, I'm telling you, it's not just always a work ethic problem or something like that. That's the reason. Even those that have a job, even those that have been, have done and saved money or whatever it is, there's a mental block that they cannot almost like money does not, they're not good enough for money.
Exactly.
It's not true at all.
Not true.
And I 100% agree. Everyone deserves money in the sense of you can have it. Like there's no like special that you were born with something that allows you to now have it. Like there's just a mental block that a lot of people have when it comes to money. I think part of it is nowhere near as deep as a conversation or thought of what you're talking about with health, mental health issues, but kind of like it's one of those things that money is one of those things that we never talk about in a family. Like when you grow up in families, if you think about like when's the last time families talked about money? It's almost like a taboo topic, right? Like you don't talk about money, sex, politics, religion. And one that you don't ever talk about is mental health, right? It's like never ever like even discussed. Rachel, I've loved having you on the show. And I try to listen as much as I can, and I know for me I've learned some stuff. I hope the viewers have learned some stuff. If you gave any kind of parting words or final piece of advice from Rachel for anybody that may be watching, even in business, that is successful right now, that's almost denying it internally that they maybe have some mental issue, what would be some of the parting words you would tell some of the viewers today about you, about your cause, about what you're working on?
Well, I would say first and foremost, I really believe that asking for help is a sign of strength and not weakness. I think that I'm a very strong person because I've been through a lot of situations where I needed help and I did not want to ask for it.
Yeah.
And the more times I didn't ask for it, the worse my life got, and the worse my life got, and the worse it got. And so it wasn't until I had that, what I thought, was maybe this weakness or maybe even humility to start asking for help, I actually realized that asking for help is strength and power. And then as you continue in your journey, uplifting others and helping them too. I think realizing that we're all way more connected than we think, and we all deserve help. We all deserve to be able to give ourselves to others. I also think that there's just nothing to be ashamed of. If you're not okay, you're not okay. And that's okay. It's okay. People of all walks of life are affected by mental health issues.
Right.
It affects 1 in 5 people in the United States of America, which means 1 in 5 of the wealthiest and the most successful. So for anyone who's like an entrepreneur or who feels like they have all of these, successful accolades, so therefore it can't be me. Well, 1 in 5 of people like you are going through something like that. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that, like I said before, the problem's not ever having a diagnosis. It's just if you choose to hate yourself for it. So that sort of self-acceptance is really important.
I love that first thing you said is ask for help.
There's
absolutely nothing wrong with just asking for it. And I think sometimes on the viewers, like I said, a lot more business owners, successful, so forth. And sometimes even maybe to a next level of extent, they do not want to ask for it. But sometimes the best thing you can do is just reach out and ask for help, man.
Definitely.
People do love you. People do want to help you as much as possible. So, Rachel, I've loved having the show. I love the insight you've given on so many different categories in life here. And it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. You've been very, very open, like I think you always are in life, and authentic.
Yes.
And your dark humor is wonderful.
Thank you.
And I've had a great time with you. If you guys are watching the show today, I hope you guys enjoyed the show with Rachel, who is Miss Utah, headed to Miss USA, and then to Miss Universe, and then to space. You guys follow her on Instagram at Salty Rachel. We'll see you guys next time on the Money Is Show.